creating this identity, and then this is who I am. And I can't be
Yeah.
anyone else. Someone's like, oh, I'm an anxious person. It's like, no, babe, you're not an anxious person. Anxiety is a fleeting, transient emotion. It's a state of being. It's not who you are.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the podcast Biz on the Brain with your host, me, Anne-Marie, where we talk about anything and everything around how to be your most authentic, truest, unapologetic self, because that looks different for everybody. And you also have to check in with yourself every now and then to see where you are at, where you want to go. Is this who you want to be right now? Do you want to make adjustments? All of that. And that has been a huge topic in the specific episode with the wonderful Tristin-Storme, who is helping her clients align themselves with where they want to go and checking in and all of that stuff. Because my ideal, concept for this episode was to talk with a fellow manifestor of the human design. Because, I'm a splenic. She also is a manifestor. And so having big urges usually is this huge topic with manifestors. What was this kind of thought that came out of nowhere, but that felt so important to your essence that you needed to act upon it, especially, or even if it is quite illogical or rash or very incisive, but it's not always the biggest urges. Sometimes, and actually most times, it's those little things that changes who you are, changes your daily trajectory, changes your habits, but ultimately makes you question your identity. And that's really, really important because we are all transient beings. Everything is kind of like constantly undergoing change, and to being open to that is key. And that also could mean that if you want to make changes, you need to know what it is that you want to change, the intention behind it, and who that person that would have those changes be met regularly look like. Are you willing to step into that person? Are you willing to lose some things that you're still clinging on to with your identity that might hold you back? Because sometimes that's actually more convenient and more predictable in a kind of false reliability kind of way to cling to what is already there, what you're already familiar with, even if you don't actually want to do it anymore. But enough of all of that. Let's get into the specifics and more concrete examples with the wonderful Tristin-Storme. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy to have you here because we had a little trial chat, like a pre-recording chat, and we were vibing, and I wish we could have recorded that already. I feel like I say that every time, but like that's just how beautiful it is to talk to fellow manifestors who just get it. So will you just quickly introduce yourself and what you do and how you change the world, and then we maybe diving right into what the biggest urge is that kind of turned your life 180, because I thought that would be a really cool topic that I haven't covered so far. But let's just start with you. Who are you? What do you do?
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Anne-Marie, for having me here today. I'm just so excited that we've connected across the world. So my name is Tristin-Storme, and I am based in South Africa, KZN, and I am a life alignment coach. What is that? I know there's so many different types of coaching. There are business coaches, manifesting coaches, all the different kinds of coaches. And for me, I really see the individual as this holistic being with all these different facets of our lives, so we can focus on one area. We can be a great parent, we can have a successful business, but I'm interested in allowing people to really have it all in every area of their life. And that means tending and maintaining and loving each of those different areas, getting to know what are some of our limiting beliefs and our blocks, maybe around money, around success, around relationships, and helping people with a variety of modalities, which I've spent the last 15 years collecting, curating, integrating, to really bring sustainable change to people's lives. So that is my absolute passion. I have a global business. I work with people all around the world to really design a life that they absolutely love, because we're here in this body, in this one life, depending on our belief system, but we're only here as these versions of ourselves this one time. So why not make it epic?
So, right. And there's only now.
Yeah. Exactly. And that now, getting those upgrades as we go through different phases and we desire more, we make space for more, we have to figure out, whatever those blocks are. What else? I'm a mom of two. I have two gorgeous, gorgeous little kiddos. That I'm extremely passionate about. They're the next generation, so making sure that I'm laying a good foundation of solid beliefs. I have a little manifesting generator and a projector in my kids, so it's quite interesting. And then a generator husband. So
wow, what a mixed household.
Exactly. And my mom's a reflector, so I literally have all the different types to contend with, to interact with. So that's me in a small, teeny, tiny nutshell.
Wow, that is impressive. And what type of manifestor are you? Do you want to share?
Oh my goodness, a hermit. What is that though? 1/6. Oh my gosh.
Okay, I don't know.
I'll have to.
It sounded like you're more of the in-depth line one person who just really loves the knowledge, but then shares it with the world. Because for me, I love knowledge, but for me it's a trap. Like I just need knowledge to a certain extent, and then when I feel the saturation point with like my spleen, who's also have ADHD, like so many things are fascinating to me, then I need to do it, and then it just suddenly out of nothing becomes boring and stale and then just repelled. And so I always struggled with that because everybody's like, you need to stick with it, the generator conditioning. Yes. And I learned when I like followed this big bridge where I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to burn all bridges, move to Australia, buy bitches. I just lived in the moment. Like every day I would just be like, what do I want to do right now? Because I'd never asked myself that question, or people never genuinely wanted to know. I always decided that other people knew better because they were always so against what I always felt. Well, I was just like, I'm not sure. I don't think so. And then they came up with the logic. So I thought, okay, I got to shut down my system. Everybody seems to be so clear on what they think I need that I learned not to trust myself. And then when I started traveling, that was at the end of the world in regards to where I was before. And there was nobody there. I was like, okay, well, now I got to make decisions. That's weird. It was the best thing because I was just in the flow, drifting in and out, and things just worked out magically. It didn't make any sense, but I just followed that pull, and I just really want to help, like with you. Like I want to help people really tap into their own authenticity and this kind of zest for life and feeling empowered, however that feels for everybody else, because I'm that intuitive person and it makes no sense most of the time. Only in hindsight, it's just so obvious that I needed to do all of these weird detours and meet all of these random people and do all of these businesses that it all just connects, but you got to trust. And I think that's one of the hardest things, to just trust yourself, because we're kind of irrational beings, and that's okay. We don't have to be in our heads like Neanderthals didn't think that's hard. We learn to train ourselves, I guess, like starting from Renaissance, to just be these head-based people, and
I think
never enough party.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like control your urges, like tame the animal, like be this logical person, and then in the past century, like industrialization, all of that, suddenly everybody is just like, yeah, you can't be jack of all trades. F you, everybody with ADHD, and then you gotta just be in tech and like crypto and like whatever.
Pick a lane, pick a niche.
Yeah, and then maximize capitalist. I don't know. So like I feel this trend towards more people waking up more spiritually and trying to actually reconnect with who they were as a kid. Even like you don't have to find yourself or like be reborn, whatever. You just maybe listen to what actually makes you happy, and maybe that could be the purpose.
I love this idea that it's not who we're trying to become, but what we're trying to unbecome. Because all of that, all those layers, those social conditionings, all of our belief constructs of, like you said, waiting for somebody else to tell you what's right for you. I think in that noise, we've kind of lost that intrinsic GPS that we all have within us. this inner guidance system. You know where you're supposed to go. There's no detours in life. Everywhere you are, you're meant to be. I'm a firm believer in that. Even if it's difficult, even if it's challenging, there's lessons, there's growth in absolutely every experience. And it's hard to kind of quiet that external noise and listen inwards. That's why when we were chatting before, that traveling really allows ourselves to kind of step into that flow state, where it isn't, this is who you are. You're identified as this person, your friends, your family, everyone you went to school with. This is how you're perceived. Therefore, this is who you are. And I feel like when we take ourselves out of that comfort zone and into the unknown, it's where we discover more of ourselves, and it's that the truest form, like you said, when we're children, we're the closest to whatever you want to call it, but source, God, universe, whatever name we want to use. But it's really that divine connection that's strong, and the connection is clear, and we're very present with our feelings. You're sad. Like I look at my kids, they're sad, and then they're happy running around like within 5 minutes. And it's almost our mental rigidity that I think causes us a lot of pain as grown-ups. It's intense analysis paralysis, over analyzing everything. Before we make any decision, you have to think it through, like long term. And yeah, we really forget kind of this flexibility, this agility that we have as human beings to adapt to any situation, to any circumstance. And yeah, I'm really passionate about helping people reconnect to that.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest lessons you also mentioned, that I mentioned with the traveling, is just really when you are by yourself and you make decisions, and you really have to make decisions in the moment and fast a lot of times. You don't really have the luxury to just like retreat to your cave and then just think about it, because maybe you're stranded, maybe your luggage is gone, and maybe somebody robbed you, maybe the entire itinerary isn't feasible anymore, maybe there's some natural disaster happening, whatever it is. You just have to be there and you have to do the decisions. And sometimes, most times, our intuition and our unconscious has so much more information that we cannot fathom with our brains. That gets just it gets filtered, basically. It doesn't completely wash over you all the time, which is why having ADHD is a lot, because we see so many more things that we cannot filter. That really tells you much more. Like, so many times I could just read people's body language before people were like getting hints of their energy at all. Like, you can see things and pick up on things, and like the more you allow that and just trust it, then you can make your own decisions, and you can also at the same time allow for other people to have their own perspective on these things. Because just because somebody isn't meant for you or feels off to you doesn't mean they're like a bad person. It could be, but also it could just mean like you're not compatible right now. And especially being a manifester, I didn't know that until a couple of years ago. And I was always wondering what it is that makes people react so violently when I step into the room and just exist and I breathe and I smile. They're like, "Oh, I hate your guts." I'm like, what? What on earth did I do? Like, there's something weird about you. Like, you were like, oh, I didn't think you were, I thought you were like a bitch, but you're actually nice, like stuff like that. When I try to like people please my way into people liking me, which is not recommended. But, you get people being so instantly either attracted to you and then they just cling to you. You're like, what? Can you please leave? Like, what is going on? I did not invite you. Like, I just don't want to do this right now. Or people being so weird about you and really make it also almost their agenda to make it as uncomfortable for you as it possibly could be when they have their own stuff. And I'm like, I'm not that interesting. Please leave. And so knowing that, I realized I have also the agency to not just repeat the boundaries, which aren't boundaries if you don't have any consequences, but also be like, ending this. I can literally move somewhere else. When you travel, you're like, I can just literally change hotels. This isn't safe for me. I can change countries. And obviously that's a privilege that comes with it. But if you can also apply that, then you've done it before on this big scale. You can do it at home in a smaller scale with like people who peeve you off, people who gossip and you don't feel comfortable with that. You can then, set the boundaries and force them and be like, you're no longer part of my group now, like repel. You can use it more consciously, and then I guess also teach that to other people by example, because I'm a 4/6, like I lead by example. So that's always what I realized that I did, and I never quite knew how. But it's what I observed, and that matches with human design, which is why I really like human design so much, as a way to unlearn a lot of things that didn't serve me, where I feel validation in how the readings reflect what I felt people talked me out of, because it was illogical, apparently.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. We talk about that conditioning, and especially as a manifested child, I would wander off into the garden and just like go and do my own thing, and then get in trouble for that. And so again, it's really this, like, the confines are being built around you, almost like this in little prison of, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do that. And we talk about that internal guidance system and how switched off we become. If you keep having an inclination or a pull towards something, and then you're reprimanded, or even in severe cases punished for that exploration or for that curiosity. Like, I had to delete the adage of curiosity killed the cat, because for me, curiosity is everything. It's everything. Yes. It's how we learn. It's how we discover. It's how we grow. And this idea of being afraid to push the edge of something a little bit, and really find where those limits are within my own being, and kind of trust that I can keep making space for new things, and it is really challenging, especially for your parents, for your teachers, for everybody else growing up, because they don't really understand you. And I feel like for me personally, on my own journey, just really bumping up against those edges, like you expressed, some people either really like you or they really don't. And just kind of growing up and trying to program myself to fit into every single box, to try and be everything for everybody else, is exhausting, absolutely exhausting. I've had multiple burnouts from trying to do that. It does not work. Really just kind of stepping into, I am who I am today, but I can grow and I can change, and there's so much flexibility in my belief system, in my being, that there isn't that confine, that kind of feeling of, I'd often feel quite claustrophobic growing up, and then had chronic asthma as well, to just kind of, the physical manifestation of that. There we go. It is. It's like,
all of the throat and the stomach. Yeah,
those are my sensitive spots as well. So like, at any point when I'm under stress, it's my lungs and my tummy that speak. And the quicker I listen, the quicker the symptoms alleviate. And it's been a very interesting part of my work, actually, looking at the energetic manifestation, the physical manifestation of these constructs, these beliefs. It's, if I'm overthinking and I get a headache, my body's where, the body doesn't speak English or German. It speaks feeling, it speaks sensation. And we have to become quite adept at listening to those little subtleties, because that really is, I also feel like, our intuition, God, whatever we want to call it, that GPS, it also speaks in like a pull or a gut or an instinct. It's speaking sensation. It's not logical. A lot of times, like you said, growing up, it's very illogical. And someone's like, what the heck? Why are you moving across the world to Australia? Like, that doesn't make any sense. That's illogical.
Yeah.
But for your body to go like, hey, I have to listen to this. And then seeing all the different chapters and all the different people and all the different experiences that come out of that when you listen, and I feel like for most people, they go through their lives not listening, but then having this real sense of unfulfillment, unhappiness, anxiety, depression, all of these things, because we've just completely disconnected from the body. It's the body, it's just a machine that we force around, that we make pick up and do, and we're really not in tune with being inside this avatar and listening to those little, and sometimes they're like a tiny little whisper, and sometimes they're freaking loud and you can't ignore them like a physical symptom. But I definitely find the more I'm listening to the whispers of the body, I'm like, no, don't really feel like going there, don't want to do that. And not needing to, because I feel like that's the trap is trying to find a logical reason why. Like, why don't I want to do that? Why do I feel repelled against that? And then going into that analysis and somehow convincing yourself to do it. It takes a lot of, coming back to this theme of trust. It takes a lot of courage to be able to just go, there isn't a logical explanation. I'm doing it. I'm going to sign up for this thing. I'm going to, work with that person. I'm going to go in that direction. And yeah, the magic that happens is phenomenal. Phenomenal.
It is. And I guess it ties back to the being in the now. Like if you check in now, like it could be changing, especially for me, because I'm very, like I said, very intuitive, but also I'm very in the now. I cannot for the life of me be strategic. I mean, I have I have goals and I have deadlines and I have goals that are set into different timelines or whatever. And there's an overall maybe approach. But if my God is just wants me to do something out of left field, let's do this now. Let's do in the moment, in this now. It could change in the next moment. If I don't listen to it, then maybe the time is gone and it's never mind. No, we don't want to do this anymore. And that seems so fickle. And a lot of people have, given me that feedback a lot of times because I
watch you.
Yes, exactly. They're you're always indecisive when I said I want to do this, and then they just try to reason with me or ask me the reasons, and then again, I'm just confused now. I don't know. Or when I'm with emotionals, because I have no emotional center. I also have no G center. I am a chameleon. I can be anything at any time. I change personality when I travel different countries. When I engage with different people, my accent changes, my voice changes. Yeah, and I love it. It's just it makes me feel so much more perceptive and immersive. And I don't even do this consciously. Sometimes people have pointed it out to me, and then a lot of times they were actually telling themselves a story about me, imitating them, mocking them, whatever. I'm no, I didn't even know. This is just a thing that I do. If I don't like you, I would never do that. So it should be a compliment. But yeah, I'm just oh, I like the way you pronounce that word. So now I adopted it. Now it's my identity. I always say my speech, the way I talk is my souvenir. It's just a permanent fixture. I've been to, I don't know, in Australia, certain words I will say in that way. Or South Africa, certain words that just stick. I'm no, I need this word in this specific accent.
Yeah, come on. It's ultimate. I mean, a lot of the work that I do is helping people become flexible with their state of being. We were speaking a little bit earlier about creating this identity, and then this is who I am. And I can't be anyone else. Someone's oh, I'm an anxious person. It's no, babe, you're not an anxious person. Anxiety is a fleeting, transient emotion. It's a state of being. It's not who you are. And I feel so often we're very quick to define ourselves, and being more undefined, it does. It's almost like a superpower. And we look at states of being. So I work a lot with being able to create and design states of being. And we tend to have these kind of default settings, these little prototypes of when I'm under stress, here's my stress state. This is how I walk. This is how I talk. This is what I believe. This is how I treat people. Oh, here's my happy, joyous state of being. And it's very two-dimensional a lot of the time because it's unconscious. It's happening from what we've absorbed around, growing up, what we've seen on movies, television, and we're just kind of unconsciously playing these roles. We're in these states of being. And this, what you're talking about is a superpower, the ability to become so flexible that in any given moment, and it's interesting because the question, that maybe some viewers or listeners would come is well, doesn't that make you fake? Or doesn't that make you authentic?
Heard that.
And I actually find that the opposite is true, because the more flexible you can be, in any given situation, you're showing up in that moment actually more authentically, as opposed to, oh no, here's my little postcard of how I react in this situation. And it's this very unconscious, almost transactional thing, is someone gives me a compliment and I smile and I'm polite, and this is that state of being. And actually maybe I want to say no, or I want to be quite, more harsh, or I want to have a different resource, because we only have resources available to the state that we're in. So if we're in an anxious state of being, we don't have access to joy. We literally can't see the magic. We can't, we're not in the synchronistic flow. We're in anxiety. And for a lot of people, they feel like they're trapped there. They feel like they're stuck there. And again, because they've created an identity is binding. If I say, this is who I am, indefinitely, infinito, there is no wiggle room. That's why I love languages like Spanish, where you get to discern between what is transient. So like, I have hunger, when I eat and I no longer have hunger. Okay. So it's a transitory thing versus like estoy, like soy femenina. I am feminine in this lifetime. This is what I am. And that ability to really recognize what is fleeting, what is moving, and being able to ride that wave versus what is solid and tangible and not as changing, less permanent. It's amazing. And I mean, I spend ages trying to help other people learn that skill, and you have it naturally, which is, it's amazing. I know it's really challenging because again, when you're different, when everyone is kind of going in that direction and you're going in a pink leotard going in the opposite direction, people are like, what? This is
right.
What do I do with her? I don't know what to do with her.
Exactly. Or it's just like it comes with all of the question, like, where's my direction? Where's my purpose? Who do I hang out with? Like this always like, I don't know, because I really don't. So many times when people say their preferences, to me, it sounds like it's a fact. And then I'm just like over here being like, for me, I'm sitting in water, like all of this, like I can just pick and pull, like this is what I am right now. And they're like, no, you need to be a stone. I'm like, but you can still ride on the waves, right? I just want to like, I can flip your stone, like you can move over there with me, but like, oh, stone. Right? I'm like, I could skip you, but it comes with this extra uncertainty where I still haven't completely made peace with that, because I thrive in that uncertainty to some level. But then when people are either expecting you to be uncertain and so super flexible all the time, giving you like no information, especially like in work settings, when they especially with my ADHD brain, people are like, oh, you'll figure it out. I'm like, what do you mean? I need information, I need details, because I have like 100 scenarios in my head right now. Help me pick one, because I'm fluid. I see them all the time at the same time, and you have your specific one in mind, and you're not telling me. And they're like, you know what I mean? I'm like, I literally do not.
I don't, because I don't know what you mean. Please tell me. I do not know.
Yes. And every time they're like, oh, I thought you would do it that way. I'm like, did you now? And I just want to break something. Like, why didn't you tell me? I asked you. I do not read minds. Nobody's in the business of reading minds. And it's unfair. Right. And so, it can be a gift, because I will then be, subversive if they're open to it. My ideas will always be like what they never expected. Like that's been my feedback all my life. Yeah. Like it will be out of the box. Like as cliche as that sounds, like for me, there's no boxes. I'm like, this is what the first thought is that came to my mind. They're like, whoa, what? What? I can't. Yeah, that's what you get. And so it is a superpower. It just needs the right kind of people to actually be open to it. And that's, I guess, where the manifestor type comes in, which is repelling then the people who are like, oh no, I need you to be square. I'm like, well, no.
I'm a circle. I'm a colorful, squiggly circle. Like that.
Yes.
That's what you get.
I'm like in a movie, just like glibbering about.
Exactly. And I mean, it's tricky again, what you're saying about trying to make peace with that, or not fully having made peace with that. It is challenging because again, those social conditionings of, a lot of the shoulding of what we should be, how we should think, how we should feel, how we should respond. And obviously those are guidelines that most people are following. But I think for, you and I both, I definitely resonate with what you're saying. I feel repelled against that way of doing something. It's like this idea of having to conform to an idea, even in my business, right? So I'm a coach, got to pick a niche. This has been the thing. Every person I've worked with, every coach I've worked with, pick a niche, pick a lane. And I cannot, I will not.
Yeah.
And I know that very practically, and you're talking about strategically long term. Like, I get it. I get that that's the most successful route. But for me, I can work with anyone of any age, of any gender, of any background, and that is a superpower in and of itself. Is like, I can literally walk into a session unprepped and just meet that person exactly where they are, and to now pick one type of, I want to work with women, in this age bracket, in this, like, I don't know. I find it very constricting. I find it very limiting.
Yes. And again, it's you come with your little toolbox, and then you have to make it fit your toolbox, which is why I always win. Like, I'm not a huge fan of like big corporations, because they have all of these hierarchies and all of these, prescribed rules and systems. And when a coach and consultant comes in to help them restructure or whatever, they already have everything lined up. They just apply it in a different way to that business, to the trends, to like whatever kind of agenda is going on in the business world. And I've always noticed, regardless, like you said, like of the situation, like I've done so many different jobs. Like at one point I was like a teacher or like a proofreader, and like I did stuff for people that I had no business in. Like I was like helping people edit their papers about negotiation tactics in China. I don't speak Chinese, I don't speak, but I can just mold myself like to get into that system. I get it. I'm not an expert, like I will not teach them on the details, but I'm like, maybe you should like dive into this topic. This would be really interesting. Maybe you should speak to these people. Maybe like flesh it out in this way, like where people get the impetus from me, like where I can just like initiate them into that direction, where I'd be like, I can like really dive right into like a specific topic. Suddenly I needed to learn all kinds of tech knowledge for like some IT paper I was looking at. And I had no idea about like any of these words. So, like at one point I was doing data analysis for Indian basmati rice farmers in the mountains. And it was like, I can shift so fast if it's of interest to me. I'm like, okay, I'm immersed in this topic now. Like I'm like an expert real quick, and then I get bored and give it to somebody else. Like I can like teach people to actually wrap their head around it, make it so much more strategic and streamlined. But once the strategy sets in, I'm out. Right. And so it's so cool.
Well, this is, I think, again, where human design comes in as a really beneficial tool, because I've been living my life as a generator. I've literally been living my life as a one-woman band, doing every component in my business, every aspect of my business, and like trying to wear all the hats all the time. But again, I'm similar to you, is I get really immersed. I hyperfixate, I hyperfocus on one aspect. Cool, I'm building funnels. Today I'm teaching myself to build a funnel, building the funnel. Perfect, there it is. And then I'm over it. I'm over it. And I'm on to now YouTube marketing or whatever. Like, and it is tricky, because, the ideal situation is I have a beautiful big team that loves and is passionate, a bunch of generators that absolutely love doing those different components. And I'm really, the idea, the brain, like the ideas behind it, and I just get to kind of touch and dabble in each of them. But it's tricky, especially as a solopreneur, because at the moment, current situation is I am my business, the whole entirety of my business, every aspect. And I definitely, the last couple of months, have been going through quite a big transition, I'd say, of really reassessing that, because I no longer, what I do know for certain is that I no longer want this hustle culture. I'm done with it. I'm done. It exhausts me. I've had 2 burnouts, hugely, really, really damaging burnouts, adrenal fatigue, and my energy can't work like that. I can't do this. I have to force, and it's tricky, because obviously, the online world is very much about consistency and algorithms and meeting all the things and goals, all the stuff. And the last couple of months, I've just been really in a little bit of a hermit bubble, a little bit of an introspective bubble of going, you know what? My whole business has been built on word of mouth. Absolutely. Every client I've aligned with at the right time, right moment, I'm like, cool, I'm ready for 3 more clients, and they come. And that is that that the magic of it is when I really let my superpower work. I'm kind of like a magnet, and I'm just drawing in what I need when I need it. But I've been working in this very generated, like, operations way. And I almost feel like I can see that the negative impact that that's had on my business, because again, when I'm aligned, when I'm truly aligned and I'm doing things in that flow, as opposed to forcing myself, oh, you have to put out a YouTube video because it's this date and you said you were going to do it on this date. Like, I'm having such an aversion to that whole thing. And I've really just the last couple of months given myself permission to just in this moment be completely undefined. And I haven't been. I'm posting really only when I feel it aligned or it's resonating, or when I have something to say. Because I also feel like today there's just so much noise. Everyone's trying to shout their perspective and their voice and putting everything in there. And I don't want to operate like that anymore. If I have something interesting to say, I will say it in a format that feels aligned, that feels resonant to me. And again, obviously it's very counterintuitive in terms of strategy and the way that it's supposed to work. But again, my business is thriving. I have all the clients at the right time. And so it's just about socially unconditioning those expectations and really leaning into embodying that resonance of, this is actually that I'm wanting. This is what I'm calling in versus what I think I should be doing, which is hard, but also necessary.
I know, but I'm still in this weird thing where I kind of know technically, like you, like I always attracted clients when I needed them, when I didn't really expect them. And every time I tried to like hustle and reach out and like, because I used to do full-time content creation, and like that's the worst thing for a manifestor, to be constantly, everything's content, every day you need to be present. Because I was doing it with travel. I had like travel blogs and worked with travel destinations, tours, and all of that. And so everything was content. And still to this day, I can't travel without documenting it. And then it just now, for the past 4 years, it just clutters up my hard drives because it's all there for me to do it. But I just really don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to disregard it, because like for me, that's also where I help with my manifesting. Like so many women I helped with these travel blogs, or even just in the moment when I met them on the road, and they'd been then inspired to try this thing or try solo travel for the first time, which is for me the most empowering thing I had done. And so I want more people to consider it and actually do it. And every time I like preach it, people are like, I don't care. But like when they see me out and about in the wild being like, I love my life, they're like, maybe I should. And then, they do it. And so like, I don't want to like scrap this, but I just want somebody to take it on and just do it for me, because I have all of the stuff ready to go. And I have so much information if somebody, because I thrive in like externalizing my thoughts. Like if you just ask me for a travel story or travel recommendation for this one obscure town, I will like divulge like full on lecture.
Everything.
Like here's the photo, here's the map, like here are the top 10 tips, here's where not to go. Like I remember the food places, like I can show you, like I remember it, but like sitting down to write it all, I can't. I feel this physical force away from it. And so this is so wild when people are like, just do it, also like I have ADHD. You can't.
Just want me to just do it. It has actually, I find the opposite effect. Like, yes, it's the more pressure I put on myself to be consistent, the more I there's like a self-sabotage mechanism that kicks in, but I've reframed it. I don't think it's actually self-sabotage. I think it's self-preservation. In the past, I would really guilt trip myself about why I'd kind of retreat, and I'd like physically not be able to look at my laptop. I'd have this, like you said, like a physical sensation of, I can't do this. I cannot, I'm really trying. I'm sitting there, I'm at my laptop, I'm doing the thing. And, someone would be like, oh, you just have to push through that. And for me, I would then kind of rebel, but I realized it was a way of preserving my energy, because I would, that type of hassle, just force it, just do it because you have to do it, depletes me. And my superpower is being able to kind of initiate like really out there, beautiful, I've got so many amazing courses out there that have just kind of come through me, and they're out there in the world. I mean, I get things done. Don't get me wrong. I'm hyper functional. The trick is that it's seasonal, it's cyclical. It's not this on. I don't believe, especially as women with our hormone cycles, we're not designed, and this might ruffle some feathers, I know, but I don't feel, just biologically, we're not really designed to be a 9 to 5 hustle, push every day of the week, because our energy, literally our hormones are dipping, changing, shifting. There's amazing work by Dr. Mindy Letts around this, around how to almost work with those natural cycles. And I've been doing it for a couple of months now. And I'm finding my productivity levels are so much better when I'm working in those windows. So when my testosterone, on my cycle between day 5 and 10, I can get like a month's worth of work done in 5 days, as opposed to before, where I'm just trying to put it out there all the time and then feeling utterly exhausted. Like my hormones were completely out of whack, burning out, and now really allowing myself to listen to that cyclical shift of, right now I'm in an inwards. I'm quiet. I'm now coming out of it. I'm definitely more in my spring. Like that's why it's the first podcast I've done this year. Last year I did quite a few. But I think it's about almost retraining ourselves to see our natural cycles and to work with that ebb and flow, versus very black and white. You have to do it this way. This is the prescribed way. And you have to just do for the sake of doing, No, I say no. I say nay.
Yes, I agree. I sign that. Yeah, and it totally made my life so much easier, because I used to suffer so much from my period. Like it just completely knocked me out for a week. I would collapse. I would just be white as a sheet. I would like barf. I would sit, like lie in my bed shaking, and then that was hard. Laying down already felt like I was falling. And now that I'm just, I feel my period coming. So now everything's canceled. And if I want to vegetate in my bed, I'll do. If I want to go walk out, and then I realize I can't summon the strength, I just sit on a park bench until I can walk back, and don't try to beat myself up about it, because nobody actually cares, And I always felt like, oh my gosh, I can't inconvenience people if they had a day planned, and I'm just there like cranking, they like putting like a cramp on it, and but now I'm just like, I don't want to hang out with people who don't show me any compassion, because I don't want people to be uncomfortable because I want to do a thing. Like that would make me feel like an asshole. And so now I have to like really take a really good hard look at myself. I'm like, am I making myself feel like an asshole? Am I the asshole? Right? And so now ever since I listen to myself, now my periods only last like, not the actual period, but like the downtime is really just a day. And then the rest day, I just take it really slow, like whatever I want to do. I do in that way. But it doesn't knock me out anymore. Like I don't really have that much pain. I still but it's so much
not as bad. Yeah. Well, coming back to what we were talking about with the symptoms and the body speaking, is I definitely find, everything is always working for us, even though a lot of times it feels like it's working against us. So what I started to notice was I would get sick. I would get sick and literally physically not be able to work. And I realized that my body was, again, the self-preservation mechanism kicking in, saying, we're going to force you. If you do not take rest, if you do not listen to your body, we're going to put you down with like a badass flu, and then you physically can't move. And I realized that I don't need to learn in that way anymore. If I listen to my body, especially we're talking about the cycle, when I'm listening to the subtlety changes in my body, again, the symptoms are far, far, far less, because they don't have to shout. They're whispering, and I'm listening to the whisper. And what dramatically changed in my business was when I started, because before I was like, I can never cancel a session. I have to be there. I have to show up. I need to be available. My energy has to be available to everybody all the time. Could never cancel a session. Even if I was freaking sick, cramping out, whatever it was, my like values was like, I have to be of service. Quite a martyr story looking at it now.
Yeah. Again, that's how it ties to identity.
Absolutely. Because I was like, this is who I am. I'm this person who's consistent and shows up, like, come rain or shine. Like, this is so valiant of me to, like, come to this, whatever it is, even though if I'm feeling really out of alignment with it. And what I realized when I started to say to my client, hey, I want to give you 110%. I want to show up for you. Today, I can't do that. I literally want to pull the covers over my head. What I realized, you said about leading by example earlier, it's exactly that. Is when I give myself permission to rest, I'm literally by extension sharing and teaching more authentically to my clients to say, honor yourself, listen to yourself. Here I am honoring myself and leading by example. And it was a really challenging thing to be able to start to implement. But what I found was, number one, people are so understanding, and it's really just in our own head. Like you said, like, no one actually really, it's like, of course, if you don't feel well, like, sleep, because that's what I would say to anybody, like, I would want them to honor themselves. So why wouldn't that apply to me? What makes me, the exception to the rule, that I have to, like, be a bit of a slave driver, force myself to do things I don't want to do because I think I have to? That really is, for me, the definition of being out of alignment and really not honoring the body. And then I'm completely out of resonance. Versus, hey, the more I'm listening to my body, the more I'm speaking out about that and saying, you know what, I'm not posting. I don't want to just show up. I'm here. When I'm here, I have something to say, and it's going to be interesting. And it's tricky because, people are also conditioned to have you readily available, because that's how we condition people how to treat us. And it's now this almost a retraining. You spoke about boundaries, and boundaries aren't just a line in the sand. It's a consequence. So if you don't have understanding and compassion for me, I'm not going to want to engage with you. That's the consequence. That's the lie. So the people that I have in my life now are so understanding. All the clients I work are so deeply understanding. And again, it's a reflection of how they treat themselves by extension.
Right. And it's also a compassion towards other people. If you say, okay, I'm not feeling it 100%, like, if I showed up, it would be out of alignment for me, but it would also not really help them at all. And the more you actually value yourself and the other people, then you will have the understanding, like, maybe it is inconvenient because, you're looking forward to it. Like, there's maybe problems with timing, whatever. But at the same time, what are you going to get? And we have this kind of mindset that evolved over time of social media, where people, have to be available all the time, where they have to be on and 24/7, and then also where people are showing their best side all the time. So when people suddenly are like, I feel terrible today, it is like a shock to the system, because most people are like, how are you? Oh, I'm good. How are you? Like, we don't talk actually about how we feel. And so every time people actually met me with, like, I feel terrible today, I can't do this, or like, I overslept, I didn't honor this thing, I instantly was like, oh, you can't, like, I'm always reliable, like, I was waiting here, like, I had to, and then I have to realize, like, wait, okay, what if I could allow myself that as well, where I communicate how I feel? Like, maybe I shouldn't have to put myself through this, maybe I shouldn't have to be such a stickler to all the things, maybe I can meet people again, like, it could be a boundary, like, you did this once, you can't do this again. I can still understand it, but I can still set the boundary, or I can also learn from it, not just me inspiring other people, but also they kind of questioning my identity with it, where you can be like, oh, maybe I want that as a new identity, and then make it a new habit. And the more and more you reflect on it, the more and more you question it, the more you can actually integrate it, instead of just being like, oh, today I'm a whole new identity. And it doesn't line up because you haven't really allowed yourself to ease into that at all,
Absolutely. I actually find this a lot. I do a lot of couples coaching. And one of the biggest conflicts is, in any dynamic, whether it be a friendship, it's this, well, I do this, and so the expectation is that you should do this. But the conflict comes in. So, for example, my husband relaxes wonderfully. He's so easily able to relax, and this would cause a lot of conflict, because for me, I have to be on. I have to be, like, productive all the time and busy. So I'd get upset with him for relaxing. But when we recognize that trigger was actually an invitation for me to give myself permission to do the same thing. And as soon as I started to do that, that conflict completely went away, disintegrated. Because now when I look at him relaxing, I'm like, I check myself. I'm like, oh, where am I? What's my energy doing? Do I feel like, am I busy because I want to be, because I'm excited and I'm feeling creative and inspired? Or do I want to lie my ass down? And instead of then trying to fight him as an external reflection of what's happening for me internally, it's this giving yourself permission. And I find this so often in all relationship dynamics. And it's, if you're listening out there, just really getting curious about what are those triggers, what are the qualities that really upset you in somebody else. So for me also, I love being on time, and this morning we had a time issue, and it's still such a trigger for me, because I value being prompt. I value being, people's time is precious, and I respect people's time. So it triggers me when other people aren't, or when I mess up. And again, when we recognize and we start to have compassion for ourselves and our own humanness and our fallibility, like, we're going to step up, we're going to make mistakes. How can I make sure that I'm obviously taking accountability and owning those things, but also recognizing what are the qualities in other people that I don't give myself permission to embody? What are the things that I feel like, oh, someone else can do that, someone else is allowed to do that, but I'm not? Why?
Right.
Why? Especially if it triggers you, because our triggers are our teachers. If it's like this thing, I find a big theme across the board with clients is a feeling of disappointment. And the emotion of disappointment, the feeling of disappointment, is an unmet expectation. But like we said earlier, no one's telepathic. If I did not communicate my expectation to you, your disappointment doesn't meet up, right? Because you're disappointed in me, but you didn't communicate your expectation. This was the expectation. I didn't know about it. Therefore, I disappointed you. And this is such a common theme. And people just walk around going, oh, but she should have known. She should have just known. He should have known. How? If we're not actually being clear and specific with those needs and desires, and also then checking for capacity. Because if I have an expectation of you, but you don't have the energy or the capacity for it, I'm going to be disappointed. That's an inevitable thing. It's like your parents. If you keep expecting them to receive you with open arms and in this way, you're going to feel hurt every single time they don't, not because there's anything wrong with you, but because they don't have the capacity or the emotional intelligence to be able to meet the need. And this is often where we fall short, as we place this very huge ask on somebody else. It's like, I need you to meet all my needs, but I'm not actually checking in, number one, with my own needs, like what they are, and communicating them. And I'm also not checking for capacity from the other person,
Yeah. And then also society teaches us to be, especially women, to first be martyrs, but also to raise the man, in especially heterosexual relationships, where it's like, no, you get a fully grown person. Are you compatible right now? Yes or no? If you don't, then, well, you're not. Like, yes, you can check in with your expectations, you communicate your needs, but if it's not a fit, or if they don't really actually care that much to adapt, well, then it's not. Like, it's not your job to teach people exactly how to love you. You also need to be able to walk away when it doesn't help you, because it doesn't mean anything necessarily about them, but like, you need to be honest and check in with yourself. Like, what is it that I need? Can they meet it? Maybe they don't have to meet every need, and they shouldn't, because a relationship isn't meant to serve you. Even if you are the martyr, like, you don't necessarily earn that, which is like such a bitter pill to swallow, when you're like, oh, I've done all of the things, and I've become a mind reader. I can see somebody's energy. Like, I can see like they're upset, and I can like know how to cuddle them and like work with their feelings and get like, that's not your job. It's nobody's job. Everybody has to look after themselves first and foremost, not to be like, mean to other people and walk all over other people, but you have to look at yourself first, then to communicate that, ask for your needs, meet your own need, and then see if you are in a relationship that can work both ways. If it doesn't, then, no matter the attraction, or no matter like whatever the situation is you're in, it's not serving anybody at the end of the day. It's just, this constant work in a way to override your needs and boundaries. Yeah.
This is like a whole juicy topic, right? Here.
I know.
Because again, I feel like we're, I was saying earlier where, I kind of, my conditioning was ultimate people pleaser, wanting to be everyone's cup of tea, but recognizing that I'm not, and I don't need to be. And like you said, kind of looking at those relationship dynamics and going, okay, so, I've got a friend who I could phone 3:00 in the morning. I know she's got my back. Like, she's my ride or die. I know that because it's been tried and tested over time. But then I have loads of other friends that I will chit chat with, or they're great for going on adventures with. And it's recognizing as well these roles and responsibilities. And this is where the flexibility comes in, is the same way we do with ourselves. We start to identify. We also put that on the other person, so it's like, oh, my husband has to meet all of these needs. He's got to be like this. He's got to be the rock. He can't deviate out of those norms because then I freak out, as opposed to recognizing this is an autonomous sovereign being with their own thoughts, feelings, and programs. And the more, you said, really checking in with yourself first, a metaphor that has, on this topic of the podcast, like what's really changed the game for me is looking at, like on an airplane, they say, put your mask on first.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm a mom of 2 kids, and I'm a wife, and I'm a solopreneur, and I've got like a huge client base, and there's all these things that I have to tend to. But if I'm not tending to myself, if I'm not putting on my own oxygen mask, I am doing a disservice. And this was a very, very, I get goosebumps, very bitter pill to swallow, because my whole identity was created around being of service to others. And that's where I derived. When I realized this, when the penny dropped, it was an ouch moment. I realized that my service, my desire to be of service, was validating my inner little Tris's need to be needed. Yeah. And I'd linked my value as a human being on how needed I was. And so in terms of an identity crisis, trying to unhook that, that's why this type of work is challenging, right? Because especially when we've created such a strong identity. Now, if I'm not being of service, if I'm not showing up, and it's linked to my intrinsic value as a human being, I'm going to feel like a worthless piece of crap. Yeah? So it's a complete reframing of recognizing, actually, by me being of service here and tending to this garden and really meeting my own needs and checking in with myself honestly, sometimes brutally honestly, and really checking in, I'm actually doing a disservice to the world. I'm not showing up authentically. I'm not showing up vulnerably. I'm not being the embodiment of my brand, which is alignment. And it's such a challenging thing to kind of switch that narrative, especially from a people pleaser program, a martyr, savior complex, all of these things that, again, are so deeply wound in identity, and so you kind of have to unweave that, unpick it, dismantle it, and then weave something brand new, which is at the moment, tending to my own needs, checking in, honoring where I am at in my cyclical season helps me to show up and serve my clients and my family and myself in a far greater, more resonant way.
Exactly. And then by extension, they also learn to do that for themselves. Like, I've never understood if you have, for instance, if you stay together with a partner who maybe is abusive, for the sake of the kids, so they have a father, like what kind of father figure is that teaching them to have, to accept in their lives? Like, what is it teaching them about what a woman has to endure, be like a mother and all of that? Like, I never understood that. Like, is it, who is it for? Like, who is it? It's just the benefit of the man to me. It's
the construct. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just clinging to that identity. You're not whole without a partner. You're not whole as a woman without wanting kids. All of these different things that are kind of culturally coded. And the more and more I travel, the more I realize like everything's kind of made up. And I can just, I never really fit in anyway as a manifestor. So I can just, take on it as I go and then reassess as well. Like, I mean, like, okay, 10 years ago, I wouldn't have wanted to be more based in a specific area for a longer time, but now I am. So like, that's fine. But like, if that changes, I'm also open to it. Sure. It's sometimes hard to reacquaint yourself with yourself, or to just burn down the bridges, because now you have these new urges, these new things discovered about yourself that don't align with yourself anymore. And then that is really hard again when the logic comes in and people are like, why did you do this? Like, why couldn't you just keep it on the side? Why don't you hustle? Like, why don't you? No, because it's your life, your decision. Like, everything is transient in a way. And the more and more we accept, the going with the flow, the more the less resistance there is. And then I guess the more we can also tap into ourselves.
Absolutely. And that resistance, pain essentially is the resistance to change. It is the resistance to what is in this moment. We feel a physical pain, an emotional pain, a mental pain. It is the resistance to what is happening and occurring right now. I don't want to deal with what is, therefore I'm in pain. And again, we're accepting, and it's a skill set that we have to, like a muscle, you kind of have to work at it, like strengthen it to be able to be like, okay, so this is the truth of this moment. It is transient. It is not permanent. The more acceptance I can have for what is in this current moment, the quicker, ironically, paradoxically, the quicker it moves. You were talking about your cramps. It's like the more I honor that this is what I'm feeling, it shifts. It doesn't have to be there, I wanted to also bring up, in our little connect call, we were talking about, just on this topic of states and being flexible, we were talking about being able to tap into that flow state more naturally when we're traveling, because there is the sense of an undefined energy. Like I'm not who they say I am. I can be anyone, I can be anything, but it is much more challenging when we find ourselves stationary in our maybe hometown or in a place that's very familiar, right? It is known. It is, and this is a big component of the work that I do, of being able to find the joy and the flow in the mundane, in this everyday, especially for things that don't allow for, like being a mom, it's like a 24-hour thing. There's no room, like it is just there, right? There's not much. And it can feel exhausting. It can feel annoying. It can feel frustrating because it's like there's no freedom. And like one of my highest values is freedom, like is being able to have that flexibility. But for my kids, I have to be consistent. For my business, I have to be consistent. So how do we find that flow? How do we find movement and freedom and autonomy in the I'm choosing to wash the dishes with this intent, or I'm choosing to clean my house to cleanse the energy, versus I have to, I'm obligated to, and so I'm Tasmanian deviling around the house trying to clean. And it's really, again, it's a mental practice of finding those freedoms, because it's there. We are, even though we feel very constricted, we feel very inhibited, by the system, whatever story we're playing, it is up to us as the individual to recognize our free will choice in every single moment in the day. Even if it's, like you said right in the beginning of doing this job, maybe I don't particularly want to do this job, but I'm doing it. How can I choose to give it a certain meaning that allows me freedom? So this job equals me traveling, or this job or this relationship equals this thing. We're giving meaning. We're the meaning makers. Nothing means anything until we define things. We can undefine them and define them, but it's up to us to kind of color things in with meaning. So if we know that we have that and it's happening unconsciously all the time, it's like, I got into a car accident. That means that like I'm cursed, or this bad thing happened. That means this. When we recognize that we're sticking labels on everything all the time, unconsciously, we can start to do this much more consciously, and we can, like we've been talking about, become more flexible. And we have almost like those peelable labels, like you peel the label off, stick a new label on, versus the ones that you like have to scratch off with a sponge because it's so sticky. We want to become more agile at being able to go, hey, this could mean anything. right? This could literally mean anything. How am I consciously choosing to give it meaning? So even if I'm stationary, even if I'm here, the meaning is, wow, I'm deepening my roots. I'm feeling more grounded and more stable to, have a wider impact because my roots are deep. My branches can extend. If I see me being stationary as stuck, stagnant, trapped, right? It's just the mental story that we're playing. And then we have symptoms due to that story, right? So when we recognize, again, we're the meaning makers, we're the storytellers, what story are you telling yourself?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, I've been in that situation. I've been like, why do I keep repeating, like, I'm stuck, I wish I could go out, blah, blah, blah. And it just reaffirms it. And I don't know what, it's always so much easier to give other people advice, but usually my thing is just like, oh yeah, if you want to go travel and you can for some reason, there's always so much going on where you are already. Like, I always found it fascinating when I visit people in their hometown, and usually people never explore their hometown because it's always later, it's there. I don't have to rush anything, right? Or it's just like, it doesn't feel as fascinating because it's not different or exotic, and we just take things for granted. But when I then visit people, I'm just like, oh, we need to go see this and this and this, and they're like, I've never been here before, I've never tried on these clothes, I've never been to this hike or this museum, or I didn't even know this existed. And you show it from a fresh perspective. I always love doing that, which is why I always encourage people to visit, but they never do. I love that feeling too. It's so sad. Yeah, I was like, oh, you're there now, later. No, did you not listen to me? Anyway, but you can always do that exploration, but it's so much harder for me to do for myself, because I've already done it all. Like, I've been manifesting all over the place. I'm like, yeah, I've seen everything now. I'm ready to move on. And yeah, like, where is it? Where's the opportunity? Yeah.
Well, we're creating, that's the thing, is when we recognize that we can be flexible with our lens, we can change that perception. Opportunity is everywhere. This universe, if you look at nature, often for me, nature, I like to look at that as the mirror. Because if you look at, say, a fruit tree, an apple tree produces more apples, and inside each apple is more seeds. Like, it's an eternity worth of seeds. It's abundant. There is opportunity everywhere. And again, part of our conditioning is lack and scarcity. And it's such a deep program because obviously we're looking around the world, we're seeing so much suffering, we're seeing so much pain. It's very, very, very easy to get kind of stuck. And a negative, we look at positive and negative, and I don't see them as good and bad. I do a lot of paradox work in my coaching style, is really being able to see this and that versus this versus that, right? And when we look at it not being good or bad, there's more flexibility in that. So I'm recognizing, okay, so in this moment, there's a bit of a winter, so things are a little bit more barren, but then I'm planting seeds for the spring. And there's always the sense of there is more than enough. How are we using it? How are we making do with what we have? I love this quote. When you learn to do more with less, you can have more for less. And, again, this plays into being really resourceful and creative. Cool, I can't go travel the world because money, because time, because whatever the excuse, but I can go and explore my area. And I can, go and stay at a friend in that, little town over there. When we start to say yes to those things, to the opportunities that are present, the materials that are present, we get more of it.
Yeah.
And I've seen this time and time again. It's if I'm sitting in my apartment and I'm saying, no, I can't. It's like you're shutting doors. You're literally just slamming doors. Versus actually, at any moment, okay, well, there's a door. So here, we're sitting here. There was a door opened. Let's do this podcast. We don't know who will listen to it, what impact it will have, but we walk through the door. And then that door leads to something else. And I just feel like, again, finding freedom here, like your mental freedom, is one of the most important things that we can do, because it's a construct at the end of the day anyway. Stuck, or free. It's a construct. And, you can have all the spaciousness around you and have all the opportunities around you. But if that mind is feeling depressed and anxious and closed, you're blind. You're literally blind to what is right there. Whether it's a conversation with a stranger on the bench, which again is easier to do. It's easier to tap into when we're really in flow while traveling. But when we start to recognize, hey, that flow space, that ability to tap in and to look around and keep our eyes open, you'll see opportunities literally everywhere.
Yeah. And again, that ties in with being in the moment when you're like, okay, I can do all of those plans. Like I can maybe, if I need to like travel, book a flight, whatever. But if you're in this moment where you're not feeling anything, you're not feeling it, then your priority is like, how can I get to feeling good right now, right this moment? What do I need? Is there something maybe I haven't eaten properly? Maybe I need to go on a walk. Maybe I just need to call my bestie. Like, what is it you need right now to get to that state where you don't have the anxiousness, where you don't see the limitations? Sometimes it's just a little rescue mission for yourself. And then you can always, it's not this chase to be in the flow by all means. Like, how can I realign? Sometimes it's just like, no, I just need something right now. What is it? Figure it out. And then the more and more you do that, the more it becomes like a natural habit, part of your identity maybe. And then suddenly, you are open to, I realize I don't know anything. So if I want to do this thing, I cannot stick to this. How? Because maybe I want to go travel, but like maybe somebody is inviting me. Maybe I'm just winning a trip. Like I don't know how. I can't control it. I don't know what is like meant for me or good for me in a moment. I just have to trust. Maybe I'm not meant to do this right now. Maybe this thing, like, because sometimes I wanted to travel somewhere and then just, suddenly all the flights are delayed. Suddenly, like, this doesn't work out. The credit cards decline. Like all of the things when you keep pushing and pushing, and suddenly, like, the plane you're supposed to be on, like, when it missed the door, like on the Alaska airline, the people in those seats were supposed to be on the plane, but like everything went wrong. They didn't make it. They were not supposed to be in a plane for a good reason, Sometimes it's meant for you, even though it feels horrible in the moment.
Well, it ties into what we were saying earlier about like nothing that is for you can go past you. Like it's there, right? It's what is for you will be there. And I feel like, again, the more we push and force, we make these choices. It's kind of like, being in a relationship. It's like, oh, okay, I have to be in this relationship for whatever reason. And you force and you push it, and actually it's very out of alignment. And when we start to recognize the bad things aren't bad things, like for me, getting sick was a self-preservation thing that helped me to rest and taught me that I can actually rest without getting sick. Like, hallelujah, that's amazing. I'm so grateful for that illness, for all the experiences that have happened to me. Again, we give that meaning. At the time, it was like, oh my gosh, my life, this sucks. This is awful, full on victim mode, whatever. But when we start to recognize that this is happening, like this challenge is happening for a reason. It's helping me, it's guiding me, it's pushing me in a better direction, a more aligned direction. And if I'm trying to be in the driver's seat all the time and I'm saying, I have to go here and I have to do this, you miss all those detours, and often the detours is where all the magic is at. So you think you're taking a long road, and actually that's the road. Like, that's the road you were supposed to take. And it may feel like a long-winded, roundabout way, but what did you learn? Like, that for me is a question that I always ask myself, but also working with my clients is, what can you learn from this? Because as soon as you can learn from whatever it is. And we've all had our fair share of trauma. We've all had really horrible experiences at some point or other. And if you look back at that, trauma isn't what happened to us. It's what we believe about what happened to us, right? The trauma itself, yes, it was impactful, but it's me going, oh, I'm an awful person. I have no value because that happened, versus going, what did I learn from that? Wow. I learned to resonate and to connect with other women. I learned to be relatable. I learned, compassion. That's mine. That's my victory now. I'm not a victim because I've taken ownership of it. For me, the metaphor I love working with metaphors. The metaphor of what alignment, living aligned, truly is is if you imagine being on a slack line or a tightrope. Okay, so you're looking at this person and they look like they're all zen and balanced. And this is, I think, as well with the hustle culture, it's very much like when I make my, first 10K month, or when I have my dream job, or when I have my best relationship, then I can be happy.
Yeah.
And so we're constantly prolonging our joy or our happiness or our pleasure to some unknown destination in the future when all the stars align and all my ducks are in a row. But actually, if we look at that person on a slack line, on a tightrope, it is a very dynamic, this illusion of balance is very dynamic because you're literally touching the edges. You're touching to the left, you're touching to the right, and you're using your core, your center, to bring you back into this idea of balance, of alignment, where you're literally taking every step. But at any moment, you could fall off, you could choose to step off, the wind could blow in a way. Like, there's all of this unpredictableness to life. That's what we signed up for as humans. Weird, chaotic, unpredictable roller coaster of an experience. And I'm here, and all I have control of is my breath, each step forward, and how I'm responding to these external forces. So if a wind comes from my right, how do I counter? How do I face that? How do I deal with that? That is alignment. It is not this Zen, everything is balanced, my life is perfect, everything's amazing, because that's not true.
Yeah,
because
don't
life
want
is
toxic positivity.
Life is chaotic. No, I can't. I want to vomit, right? It's like, everything's perfectly aligned and wonderful. It's dynamic, and it requires you to have the flexibility to rise to meet whatever is happening at any given moment. And when you look at, especially, Instagram, whatever, we're looking at everyone, we think everyone has all their shit together. Life is perfect. And we're not seeing the behind scenes, and this is something whoever's listening, I really want for them to take in, because we're looking outside and we've created this expectation of what how life should be. Oh, I'm this age. Oh, this should. And you're not really looking at, number one, where you are, where you've been, the road you've walked, the challenges you've faced, what you've learned to prepare you in this moment for the next chapter, for the next step. Right? And we're moving forward from that aligned perspective, recognizing that I don't have to prolong my happiness. I don't have to prolong my joy. I'm choosing to ritualize and find that joy in the mundane, in the ordinary. We all want to be extraordinary. We all want to be famous and, with 1 million followers. And I feel like there's something really beautiful about finding the magic in the ordinary, like picking flowers outside. There's something really nourishing about this idea of embracing our absolutely ordinariness, which is extraordinary in and of itself. The fact that you are here in this body as this person with this personality, with this, position in life, in geographically, is extraordinary. It's amazing. Yeah. Phenomenal. It's a miracle.
And also you created this, everything, I have to remind myself all the time when it gets stale, I painted these walls, I bought these flowers or raised these plants, I decorated it in that specific way. All of that was intentional. All of this is something that I wanted to manifest at one point. Now I have it, and now I'm just next goal. We always move the goalposts, and sometimes it's just slowing down. Okay, I created this. I can uncreate it if it doesn't, work for me anymore. I can move things around. I can just, move myself. I can, like you said, just go visit a friend, have a little change of scenery. Might not cost that much, There's so many different ways, and when you just check in with yourself and realize what do I want, and then just brainstorm on what are the options for me. Maybe you come up with a whole new different thing. Maybe you talk to somebody else and they come up with a whole different thing you didn't even consider. And it's just being open to the process, but also being fiercely protective of your now. Who do I want to be now? Don't put it off until you're old and like retired, and then maybe you have the money, how would you know? Like, don't waste it. Yeah. How can you make life good right now with whatever you have, as much as it's possible? How can you make it better? It's really, about the mindset. Like, how can you make this fun? How can you change it up? If it really doesn't serve you, how can you get out of it? How can you get support and help? Yeah, because usually we have a choice.
Well, this is, you know, I think as humans we forget, especially because of the conditioning, is that our greatest gift as a human, greatest gift and greatest curse, depending on how you look at it, is our free will choice. Is recognizing, like you said, I am where I am today because of all my past choices. I chose every single one, every direction I've ever gone in. I've either unconsciously or consciously chosen. And I feel like for me, that's why this type of work is so important, is we're trying to make the unconscious conscious, so that we're literally choosing who we want to become versus just saying, oh, I have to choose this because my mother chose it, my grandmother chose it, my great-grandmother chose it. And we're just letting her story repeat itself. We're now in a position to go, okay, so today, this is the truth of the matter. I have a job I don't like. I have this that I don't like. This sucks. Okay, this is the truth. Now what am I going to do about that?
Right.
And it's only from really taking stock and ownership of the current situation. No affirmation bullshit, like nothing. We don't have to put a sprinkle glitter on it. No, like the real hardcore fact of this is my life. Okay. Now what? Now what would I like more of? And then are my decisions aligning with that? Because, for example, if you want to travel, but you're saying no to a friend inviting you away for a weekend, and you're saying no to all these other synchronicities, you keep saying no. The same way we condition other people how to treat us, we're conditioning the universe how to respond to us, how to, you know, we talk about the law of attraction. We're not having to attract everything. Everything is available. Everything is here. We're saying yes and we're saying no. Every moment, that's a decision. Yes to that, no to that, yes to that. Yes to being broke, no to being wealthy. Okay, cool. So if I'm choosing that, what are the decisions? What are the behaviors? What would that look like if I started saying yes? So, for example, with finance, if I keep saying, oh, I'm broke, and I start saving €1, and I'm making that choice, there's a pivot, there's a shift to now being someone who saves versus the identity of like, oh, I'm broke. Or a relationship. I won't be treated like that. I won't be spoken to like that. I'm saying no. I'm making space. And it's challenging. It's not like I don't want to give anyone like a false expectation that like as soon as you start there, it's challenging. And that every level reveals a new level, right? Like every upgrade requires like a cleaning of house, like a spring cleaning of, okay, so this is how I've defined myself. Oh, yeah, I have to look at that, clean it out.
Yeah, that's the hardest part when you realize you are your own agent, where you can't be the victim all the time. You're like, okay, you've done it. Okay, maybe other people didn't do that to you, but like, what do you do about it now? Like, are you okay with this situation? Is that your identity to be like complaining, or do you want to, get out of the rubble? Like, who do you want to be? And that is uncomfortable, even if it is for your own good, even if it's something you want to do so much. There's always something that's not the most fun about it. It's just a trade-off. Like, is it worth it for you to reach that point?
Yeah.
Do you want to get through that? Because it doesn't have to be hard always. Like, I think that's also like the overcorrection. Like, yeah, again, with the hustle, always you have to suffer, you have to work hard. No, you don't, but you need to see where it makes sense for you to do this.
Well, anything, I mean, if we look at this idea of force versus flow and pressure and, okay, so I have to do, and we're just making these choices robotically, automatically, as opposed to this. Yes, it's challenging because I have to say, you know what, I only have 24 hours in a day. I only have this much energy. I have this much capacity, and I'm consciously choosing where to tend, and for me, looking at if we're wanting a holistic life, if we're wanting to be thriving in all these areas, we have to tend a little bit to the body, a little bit to the mind, a little bit to the spirit, a little bit to the family, a little bit to the work. We have to be tending a little bit, but again, from a sense of resonance, from a sense of choice. And that's hard. it is hard. It is challenging because you're having to ask yourself in any given moment, what's a priority? So some moments my priority is rest. In other moments, my priority is going for a walk or a run or whatever it is. And that ability, again, to be flexible and honoring yourself, I think that's the hard part, because you're having to override what you think you should do. And you're really getting in touch with, what do I want? What am I choosing? Where am I choosing this person? Am I choosing to spend my time with this person? Am I choosing to listen or to consume that movie or that podcast or whatever it is?
Mm-hmm.
And things, it's easier to be naive. It's easier to just like let things happen and like feel like fate. Oh, that thing happened. Oh, see, it always happens to me. It is, yes, it's hard because it comes with these negative consequences, but in a way, there's less effort, right?
Yeah, and less surprise.
You just, there's reward. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you are always also like, I had to learn that, and it's still hard. Like, you have to ask yourself, what do you get out of this? Like, what is it that keeps you in this? Like, what is it that you're holding on to? Like, because sometimes it sucks to be a victim, but also like it is reaffirming, because then you can trauma bond with people. Yeah. You have other people who are also like bitching about it, so you can do that and you feel like vindicated. You don't have any weird surprises. You don't feel in control, but also not completely out of control, because it's predictable. You always are the one with the bad mark, So like there is something to be had for you in it. So, like our coping mechanisms were once there to help us in some way, even if it's misguided, even maybe it doesn't serve us anymore. There was a reason. There's something just familiar about it. And our brain loves familiarity, So just really getting into that and being...
It's a survival strategy.
Yeah. And that's really uncomfortable. Like, that's the hardest part, where you're like, ooh, I really have to take stock of this. And I really have to see, yes, I kind of like being a victim. That doesn't feel right. Yeah.
Well, I think asking yourself, so if we believe that everything is serving us, so like I said, my procrastination, my like self-sabotage, when I really got in touch with it without judgment, really curious about it, I recognized it was a self-preservation mechanism. It was helping preserve my energy. So now I recognize, okay, so here's a strategy that's playing out. If I can get the same need met, like getting sick, do I have to get sick to rest? No, I can just rest, right? When you start to unpack the motive behind the strategy, because absolutely everything is for our survival. Being a people pleaser, being of service. For me as a small child, that's how I survived my family. So I don't want to judge it and be like, oh, why do I do that? That's so stupid. I shouldn't have done that. It served me up until the point I realized that there was a better way of doing it. But I have to honor, the whatever mechanism, whether it's procrastination, whether it's lack of consistency, discipline, whatever it is, honoring the strategy. And then asking, okay, so how does this serve me? How has it served me to procrastinate? Well, it's really served me by preserving my energy. It's really served me in indicating what I do and don't want to do. It's really served me to reveal my limiting beliefs so that I can clear them out. And so now I have this wealth of insights into something that was negative or bad. And I'm able to do something with it, like compost it and use it for new growth. And again, it requires more conscious effort. It requires a good set of questioning. It requires a change in our inner critic, like giving that a new role and responsibility, because we can't be sitting hating on ourselves, self-loathing. It uses so much energy. And we've all been there, right? We all still get into that headspace because, like you said, being the victim it's comfortable. It's comfortable to have a sense of, for the beginning of time, our survival strategy is based on what's predictable. That's a poisonous plant. That's an edible plant. We literally need to put labels on things in order to navigate the world. And I think just to kind of sum up what we're really saying here is recognizing that some of those labels were given and no longer serve and keep us in the familiar, but don't let us expand and discover ourselves. So we want to become flexible at checking in. Is that a poisonous plant? Okay, yes, it still is a poisonous plant. Cool, it's going to keep its little label. But wow, that's the most delicious exotic fruit I've ever tasted. But before, I was scared of it. I didn't want to touch it. I didn't want to go there. And so it's really having this discernment of we're the meaning makers. We're looking around the world. Yes, we're defining things, but in order to create a new meaning, we have to become okay with the discomfort of it being undefined and unknown for a minute, right? And the more we do that, the quicker we can move back into, oh, actually, this is great and like fantastic that I'm doing this, or, oh, that's not what I want. But we only know when we allow ourselves that opportunity. You know?
I love it. There's a perfect summary, really. Yeah, just be in the moment, be open to changing, be open to questioning yourself, and then also know that you have to constantly keep doing it. And while it's work, it is worth it, you know, to keep moving, to go reach your goals, and just to be happy in the moment, like now, right now in this life, wherever it may lead. You don't know, you don't get to really decide, but you get to decide right now what decisions you're making to make little changes, and then maybe one day a big one. You know.
Well, all those little ones, I think also, like, you are sitting in this moment because of all your little decisions, you know, whether it be health decisions, whether it be work decisions, people decisions. When you look around your life, it's all of those teeny tiny decisions, you know. So I think the invitation as well is just to start to ask from this moment forward, how can I consciously choose what I want more of, instead of like getting stuck on what I don't want, because that's where the mind is fixated or focused on. Oh, what a yummy conversation. So delicious.
I love this. Is there anything we haven't touched upon that you just want to drop before we wrap it up? I feel like we've touched so many things.
I think just, we've touched so many things, and I'm a big believer on just kind of threading things together. So I think the main highlights for me or takeaways of this conversation is that I just like to, you know, put a, for the whoever's listening to really absorb, is honoring our natural cycles, really recognizing that we're more like nature than we perceive ourselves to be, that we are, the more we start to listen to where we are, the more flexible and free we are to be able to choose different things, to go in different directions, to travel to new places. Really working with what we have in order to get more. So, you know, like choosing, if I can't go travel now, what can I do? Oh, I can go away to that place, or I can go pick apples, or I can, whatever it is. Just starting to do the things you want to do and not put that off for when I'm old. We all are headed to the same place. I know it's a depressing thought, but I actually find it to be quite liberating, is if the final destination is the loss of this physical body, if that's the final destination of this earth game, and I recognize that, then okay, cool. So how do I live every day? How can I find joy and beauty and magic and flow, even in the simplest, most mundane experiences? Recognizing that the more freedom we have with our identity, who we think we are, the more freedom we have to become something we've never been before. Those are some of my points. Anything from your side that's really stuck with you?
Just, you know, focus on the now, check in with yourself. Those two, I'd like to add. Nice. So where can people find you or connect with you if they want to learn more about?
Amazing. Well, I'll share some links. So I've got one of my new courses that are out at the moment is called Wayfinder, Navigating the Inner World of Feeling. And it really is a beautiful journey into meeting our core major emotions and just kind of reframing our relationship to anger, to sadness, to fear, to joy, to love, and becoming our own inner wayfinder, you know, that finding that GPS system. And I've also got the Life Aligned Legacy program, which literally zooms into each of our superpowers, from wellness to passion to abundance, really going through all of these different areas. People can find me on YouTube at the Life Aligned Academy. I'll share the links. I'm on Instagram, Life Aligned Academy. And then, also my email address, you can just pop me a message, and I've got a free discovery call if someone just wants to connect and learn more about how I could support them. I'll also share that link with you.
All down in the show notes.
It's what it is. Yes. Thank you so much for having me. This has
Thank
been
you.
such a wonderfully nourishing conversation. And yeah, thank you all for listening, watching.
Thank you so much. Have a lovely day. Bye. And that wraps up this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, if you've got some feedback, some questions, you want to share your own stuff, maybe you want to be on a podcast. If you are a manifestor currently, that's what the season is about, then feel free to get in touch. And, if you're not, you can still chat to me or Tristan. All of the links are down below in the show notes. And if you really resonated with this episode, please tell everybody about it. Share it on social media, because that's how more people can find it. It is still a pretty new, pretty small podcast, and it's really about spreading the word. If you like it, to spread the word, really. Like, that's how this works. Okay. So I hope I see or hear you around for the next episode, which are out on Fridays. And until then, I wish you a fabulous week. Bye-bye.